If you're part of the law enforcement family, this is your show. Here we talk about all things Leo family life, the good, the bad, the funny, and the sad, and everything in between.
Music by Dan Tracy.
Well, hello. Welcome back to another episode of Blue Family Unity. I'm Elsa Kurt, and this week we've got lots to talk about, lots and lots of things. It's going to be a great show. We have an awesome guest on. He is Matt Damiancic. I hope I said that right. Damiancic. Matt Damiancic. He is the Tactical Chaplain, and he's got some really great things to talk about. It's going to be a lot of fun. The first thing we're going to get to, though, is a new segment called Pardon My Preach. Here we go.
It's time for Pardon My Preach.
So I saw a meme the other day, yesterday, I think it was just yesterday, on social media, and I got it in front of me, so I'm going to read it to you. It was, police officers would not be losing their jobs if they would only stop resisting and comply with the commands they were given. So obviously they're being cheeky. It's a cheeky twist on what we all say in regards to people resisting arrest and generally being assholes to police. It's simply comply and and you'll be fine. And so this was in regards to the mandates, of course. So surprise, people who think we should be told by the government what to inject into our bodies believe that officers should lose their jobs for not having something forced into their bodies. Makes perfect sense, right? So my first reaction, I was to get really annoyed by the meme. Clearly, I'm still annoyed by it because it's such a non-comparable thing. But this is what we do. We make memes and whatever, and it's fine. It's fine. But yeah, you really can't compare the two. Someone breaking the law, doing something illegal, and resisting arrest and being a threat to society and not complying with the commands of a law enforcement officer is not the same as somebody telling you that you have to take an experimental injection into your body that we don't know what the long-term effects are. We don't care if you have a medical exemption or a religious exemption. We're not even going to acknowledge that you have that. You have to do this or you will lose your livelihood. You will no longer be able to support your family in the career that you chose. Yes, because I know they chose the career. Oh, I know. In this career that you chose, we really, by the way, it's a calling. Yes, it's a career where they make money. It's a little different than being an accountant. No knock to accountants. We need them. Because I suck at math, first of all. So yeah, you're trying to compare things that you can't compare. They don't go together at all. And we all know this. And whoever created the little meme also knew that deep down. They just were being funny in their mind. And to anyone who agrees with that concept somehow, would find that funny. But the reality here is not funny. It's not even vaguely funny. So what's going on is that you're telling the people who risk their lives every day or are willing to risk their lives every day that the year and a half longer, more than that probably now, the year and a half plus that they have been your essential employees, those the ones going to work while you got to stay home and be safe, they were the ones putting their health and their lives at risk for their communities. And now they're being told, yeah, we don't care about that. Go fuck yourselves. That's basically what they're being told. We don't care about your sacrifices and what you were willing to do on our behalfs and the risk that you took and put your family at risk. We don't care about that. That doesn't matter anymore. even though we know so much more than we knew back then when it was all new and terrifying, and we were washing our groceries before they came into the house or as they came into the house. I mean, we were washing our groceries. I know a lot of people were. I'm not crazy. When this first all started, I was literally, when the groceries would come in, I had my groceries delivered. Yes, I know, but I love Instacart. What can I tell you? I was having my groceries delivered, and when they came in, I actually put on gloves and I was like wiping everything down and washing all my fruits and vegetables. And, that's what we were doing in the early days because we didn't know. And but during that time, my husband was still going to work, and all of the spouses and partners and loved ones of other law enforcement families and doctors and nurses and firefighters and all the essential workers, they were all still going to work. And nobody really gave that any thought. I mean, they thought about it and they said thank you, and they made a big deal about them. And, people had signs and posters up in their windows and on their lawns, thanking first responders for being the ones going out there while the rest of us were too afraid to. But now you flash forward, and we have this vaccine that is clearly not working. You can still catch it, you can still spread it, you can still get pretty sick from it, you can even still die from it. Your chances just might be a little bit less than somebody who has not had the vaccine. Apparently, that's what they're saying this week. It's ever evolving. So yeah, so that's what I'm a little pissed off about today. So pardon my preach, but it's bullshit. And if you agree, you should be standing up and saying that it's bullshit and defend the defenders, protect the protectors. Don't be quiet about it. All right. I think I've got it off my chest. I really have so much more to say, but that is it for Pardon My Preach. We are going to move on to our top headlines in the world today. Let's go check them out. All right. Well, here's a not so subtle segue into our first headline. And what a surprise. It's about the mandates, but it's a little bit of good news, a little bit of a light at the end of this very dark tunnel that we are living in. So from LET, Law Enforcement Today, the headline I'm reading for you is Chicago mayor fuming after judge orders immediate halt to mandate for Chicago police officers. So this is a short win, a small win, a temporary win, really is what it is. The Democratic mayor of Chicago, Lori Lightfoot, her, Beetlejuice, she had mandated that all police officers that work for the city receive the COVID vaccine or face termination. So now a judge has reversed the mandate, allowing the men and women of the agency to choose for themselves, at least for now. So this is temporary. This is, it's a big deal, but it is temporary. So we still don't know what's going to happen in the future here. Logic and common sense would say that this would stay, but we're not living in the time of logic and common sense. So we'll see, but at least it's a short-term victory right now. So under her mandate, all city employees would have to be, or would have been, required to get the vaccine and show proof that they had it by October 15th. Obviously, that deadline has come and gone. She explained her rationale in enacting the policy by saying, you ready? This is a direct quote: getting vaccinated has been proven to be the best way to achieve that and make it possible to recover from this devastating pandemic. So much to unpack just in that statement alone, right? It's not the best way. They have studies out that are showing that naturally gained immunity to the virus lasts longer and is more effective, but we're not allowed to talk about that apparently. So but they still really want to push this vaccine. And by the way, I always have to say this every single damn time, I'm not against the vaccine. Despite what you hear me saying, I'm not against the vaccine. If you want to get the vaccine, get the damn vaccine. If it protects you or makes you feel like you're being protected better, then terrific. Do it. I think that's awesome for you. However, I'm against the mandates. And most of us will say that. And even people who are completely against the vaccine, even they will tell you If you want it, get it. Just don't tell me that I have to. That's all. Simple as that. And certainly our government should not be telling us. Oh, let's see. Okay. So interestingly enough, even though Lightfoot thought that she had the authority to enforce the mandate, Cook County Judge Raymond Mitchell decided that she did not. At least not in the manner that she's doing it. So yeah, so she's got to go through other channels, which I'm sure she will. I'm sure she is right in the process as I speak of trying to find a way to get her way. As it stands, in many of these cities and towns across the country, you're having things like in New York, just in New York yesterday. I think it was yesterday. I'm looking for it right now as I'm talking. They had, I think it was something like 2,000 New York City firefighters call in sick. So, they were not feeling well. And obviously, we all know that it's due to the mandates. Yes, and there's people like, well, that's terrible. You can't do that. You're leaving your city unprotected. It's your responsibility, blah, blah. Well, what about the city's responsibility? What about our community's responsibility to our protectors and defenders? We have a responsibility to them. And it is that simple. You need to protect them so that they can protect you. So there's that. Boy, this whole thing might just be a pardon my preach, a long extended pardon my preach. No, it's not. We got another story for you. So listen, I despise Ben and Jerry's with a passion. With a passion. It is not allowed to come through our home. It can't go past our doors. Now, unlike cancel culture, I wouldn't tell you not to eat Ben and Jerry's. If you like Ben and Jerry's, get your damn Ben and Jerry's. I don't care. Just for me, our household, because of their stance on law enforcement and police, they can go fuck themselves. Sorry, I'll probably bleep that. I get fired up, people. But anyhow, let's see this headline here. Again, law enforcement today. The Empire State strikes back. New York pulls pension funds from Ben and Jerry's parent company over their Israel boycott. Good, so they can suck it. Anything, in my opinion, negative that happens to them brings me joy. Is that petty? Maybe. I don't really care. So yeah, you can check out that story in Law Enforcement Today. That is your headlines for today. All right, we got another new segment for you. It's called Not in the News Today. It is the stories that you will not find on mainstream media. All right, our first story in Not in the News Today is about a group of pretty amazing men in the world, and we need more like them to stand up and do what they're doing. They are called Dads on Duty. They are from Shreveport, Louisiana. And what these dads did is pretty amazing. So apparently in their local high school, there was a lot of problems, a lot of fights. It was pretty bad. And these fathers decided, you know what? We're going to go in there and we're going to be a presence for these kids, and we're going to turn things around. So it's such a great story. Since they've made this presence in the schools, there have been no violent incidents since they've been there, which is pretty incredible. While I'm definitely an advocate for school resource officers in schools, it is because we don't have things like this. We don't have parents stepping up the way that these dads did.
We decided the best people who can take care of our kids are who? Are us. What we do.
So Michael Lafitte started Dads on Duty,
We're out doing what we do for our babies.
a group of about 40 Southwood dads who now hang out at the school in shifts.
Let's go.
Today, any negative energy that enters the building has to run a gauntlet of good parenting.
And I fully support that. If that is an option, I agree. Who better than the parents to control their kids, basically? All right, our second Not in the News story today is about the baby of a New York State trooper who is battling for his life and needs our help. New York State Trooper Paul Stedman and his wife Melinda have a very sick boy, Joseph Stedman, known as JP. JP was diagnosed with a rare pediatric liver disease shortly after birth. JP was just placed on the National Registry for a liver transplant, and the hospital has told them that the out-of-pocket cost will range from $50,000 to $80,000. On their page, JP's mom wrote, in his short life, he has had countless sticks and pokes from lab draws, ultrasounds, several clinical and pediatric visits, MRIs, EKGs, echoes, x-rays, PICC lines, and therapy sessions. JP's JP's transplant will take place 4.5 hours from home at UMPC Children's Hospital of Pittsburgh with his big sister Savannah and big brother Zachary staying at home with family members. 100% of funds raised will go towards lodging, traveling, meals, parking, medical bills, pharmacy costs, tolls, and allow JP's father to be with him at the time of transplant, as he is the only source of income for the family. Thank you for your support, and most of all, please pray for JP, his family, and his entire medical team. To learn more or assist this family financially, you can visit their GoFundMe page and JP's Facebook page, which I'm going to give you links for. As of right now, a little over $20,000 has been raised, so I think we can get them to their goal. Do whatever you can, and if you can't, we always say if you can't share financially, that's totally understandable, but at least share their story and their GoFundMe page to your social media and help get the word out for them and let other people know what's going on. In our last story for Not in the News today, we're going to honor a fallen officer. State trooper, a young dad with 4 little kids, was killed in a horrific car crash while rushing to a call. The Iowa Highway Patrol advised that State Trooper Theodore Ted Benda was responding to a call to assist a Clayton County Sheriff's deputy on a call for service. The trooper was responding to assist the deputy, who was out with a person with a warrant. Benda was traveling on Highway 51 near Postville, Iowa, when the crash occurred. The Highway Patrol is not releasing any details of the crash as of yet, other than Benda's vehicle was the only one involved. Benda was airlifted to a nearby hospital. Sadly, on October 20th, Benda succumbed to the injuries. Trooper Benda leaves behind his wife, Holly, and their 4 young children, along with many family, friends, and colleagues. A memorial fund has been established to assist Benda's family during this difficult time. Those who wish to donate may do so by contacting Freedom Bank in Walken. All right, guys, that is it for Not in the News today. Our last segment of the day is going to be, yes, you guessed it, our guest is coming up. I'm very excited to bring on Matt Damiancic. He is the Tactical Chaplain, coming right up. As promised, we are here with, now I got to look at it. I actually had to sound it out, your last name. So I'm going to see if I get it right. Okay. We're here with Matt Damiancic.
Wow. If you did not hear somebody else pronounce it, that is special. Wow.
I'm lucky. I'm good. I'm like, well, I'm going to take a shot here. I'm not going to have him say it for me. I'm going to do this. All right, good. I'm feeling good. This is a good start here. All right. So Matt, I have your background, right? But I want you to tell it because you've got quite a story. I already told you off camera here that you're pretty amazing. So I know that you're medically retired. You are originally from my area in Connecticut. What was it? Wallingford? No.
I'm not originally from Connecticut, but I went to grad school there and I was a cop in 2 small departments in the New Haven area. And I coached at Yale. So, and I got my master's in forensic science at University of New Haven under Dr. Henry Lee.
The Dr. Henry Lee. Very cool.
A long time ago. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you ended up in DC. Is that right?
Yeah. So, I wanted bigger opportunities with SWAT and tactical units. And as you very well know, 20 years ago in Connecticut, things were happening that are now our nationwide problems. There was someone in my grad class that shot someone that was shooting at him, if you remember this case, and the guy was shooting as he was running. He was cleared by everybody, but it was like a previously deported illegal alien felon.
That was a big case. I remember very well.
And that guy was in my grad school class. And then, and it's like, wow, shocking back then. Now it's common. Let's charge a cop with murder when it's a
Right.
completely legit shooting before there's an investigation. And then one of the cities I worked for every year had a march, and I'm not going to say the name, but again, 20 years ago, white officer, black suspect that ran the cop over,
Right.
you know,
Mm-hmm.
so the cop shot him, but every year there was protests. So a lot of the anti-police, and one of the departments I worked for was like, don't wear black gloves during the day shift because it's too intimidating. We had to document if you cleared leather and pulled your gun. So one of the many reasons I left Connecticut, took a significant pay cut, and had to repeat a 6-month academy was because it was already it was an officer safety issue. Like,
Right.
I was hesitating to pull my gun. I was hesitating to like, oh, am I going to get in trouble for this? Am I going to get in trouble for that? As well as I wanted bigger SWAT teams. But there were other issues that I was like, this is anti-cop. I want to get out of here. Yeah, I then went to the DC area to be a police officer in a much larger department. And I did get to do eventually SWAT, peer support. I didn't know what peer support was in Connecticut. I don't even know if we had it 20 years ago. And then I was a full-time police academy instructor for fitness and officer survival. And that's tied into, because when I was a cop in Connecticut, I was a strength coach at Yale. And DC, I was a strength coach at Georgetown. So I tried to integrate tactical, before the quote tactical athlete thing was cool, I was training cops like Division I athletes and trying to speak and present on that stuff, and also incorporate self-regulation, stress management, and performance psychology with imagery and breath work and things like that.
That was 20 years ago you were doing that, starting that. That's pretty amazing, because that's really,
that stuff I was
innovative.
doing 2006 through 2009. So about 15 years ago, I was doing that stuff.
Wow. Yeah, that's pretty, I would say back then that was probably fairly unheard of, in the common lane. I mean, coping skills back in the day where you go out for some beers and then some more beers and then some more beers.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that was coping skills, and that was stress management, so to speak, back in the day. And
It
still to
is.
some degree. Yeah, I was just going to say, to some degree, or to a large degree, probably it still is. But that's really incredible that you've been doing that for as long as you have, really. You said you were medically retired.
Yeah, I was
How long
medically
ago was that?
retired 10 or 11 years ago now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you had to change gears pretty abruptly, I would think, right?
I was a wreck. So
yeah.
Here's the thing, like, I had the tools. I've been a health nut my whole life, eating healthy since 6th, 7th grade, working out hard since 6th, 7th grade. Nobody taught me, but I was already journaling on my own in high school. I was dabbling in meditation in high school, but definitely when I got to college, I eventually deep dive into meditation, into my spiritual and religious life. I had mentors and elders, and I had all kinds of tools and a whole lifetime of practicing self-regulation, stress management, taking care of myself, and seeking help and mentors. And even then, with all the tools, a medical retirement, abruptly leaving the profession that you love and your identity and your fellowship, your community, was heartbreaking, on top of having a ton of medical issues. So yeah, dark, painful times. And I didn't want to give it up. Like, you have a take-home car and a big department with all kinds of toys for SWAT. And I was going to get to, continue as a police academy instructor, but also do SWAT. It was going to be like dream job, teach people how to lift and fight and shoot, and go out and lift, fight, shoot with your SWAT buddies. So yeah, it was devastating. I had a collapsed immune system, digestive system, permanent intestinal damage from botched surgeries. And I had a psychiatrist in the DC area that I had sought out because she had yoga, meditation, physical therapy, and a nutritionist in her psychiatry office. And that's who I was seeing through all of my surgeries and my medical retirement. And she called me into her office on a Saturday when she was closed after my medical retirement was complete, which people don't know how stressful, unless you end up needing a medical retirement or you need medical care through workers' comp. I mean, I just got back from a conference, Wounded Blue, where you hear the stories, you can be shot in the head or run over as a cop, and you may not get a medical retirement. People don't know that. Or you may not get the surgeries you need in a prompt manner. So she called me in on a Saturday and said, I want you to move to Los Angeles because everything, I was on so many medications from these work comp doctors, very much like the VA and other cops and firemen. You go and they're going to give you opiates, muscle relaxers, benzos, sleep meds, psych meds. You don't even know what this stuff is. And you're a veteran, a cop or a fireman that's trying to live healthy, and we're supposed to be clear-headed. And all of the addictive, toxic prescription drugs are what they will give to first responders and our nation's warriors. So she knew I wanted to do it more holistically like she did in her office. So she said, I want you to move to LA. I don't want you to hang out with jocks, cops, or military people because you need to learn to let go and get a place by the beach, and don't dive into a PhD, because I did want a PhD at the time. Now I have 3 masters. That's a whole other long story. But and I told her she was nuts. I said, DC is crowded, expensive, horrible traffic, and extremely political. And you want me to move to Los Angeles? Like, but I did. And it worked out because I did find what's called functional and integrative doctors. At first, work comp was agreeable and allowed me to see them, and it changed my life. So,
Wow.
yeah.
That's incredible. And I can guarantee that the percentage of police officers, first responders that even know that these options are out there for them is probably, like that small. These are things I've never heard of. I didn't know that existed. And you are right about the peer support and the emotional help for law enforcement officers. I spoke with a clinical social worker who works specifically with first responders, and he kind of confirmed that. He said, you'd be amazed at how many people, including families, don't know that these services even exist. And it's just a tragedy, because who needs it more than first responders, who are seeing the worst of the worst, dealing with the uncommon stresses, and they don't even know that these tools are out there for them. Are you seeing that this is becoming more widespread, these types of services for first responders?
Well, in the DC area, peer support was very strong, and I think a lot of departments had it, and we did regional things. Like, I got called out for other agencies, and during police week, all of these different teams came together. So I think maybe in the bigger cities, and you have bigger departments with bigger budgets and more resources. Now think about, we're all understaffed right now. We're all underfunded, like paying for additional resources. We don't even have enough officers for the streets in a lot of cities. So we're going to try to devote officers part-time on the side to the peer support. It's just difficult. I think every department should have 1 or more mental health professional that's devoted to that department and can be more embedded, like ride along, hang out at the station, get to know people. So there's less stigma around it, and they can develop a relationship, but that really doesn't happen. And I will say, even most of the peer support programs there are extremely reactive, and it's just the basic Mitchell model debrief stuff, which often doesn't work because people do not want to talk in a group. If there's one person or a supervisor, you don't want to be vulnerable in a group unless you're a really tight-knit group. So I think a lot of peer support stuff is well-intentioned, but check the box. Hey, we checked in with everybody after a critical incident. We did a debrief. We don't know if they really opened up. And most officers I know at least admit to me that when they have a mandatory psych visit after an officer-involved shooting, they say what they think the shrink or psych wants to hear so they can be back on the street with their buddies. So one of my big things is peer support should be a lot more proactive, and it should include fitness, nutrition, stress management, sleep, defensive tactics, and shooting. Because if you can't shoot or fight and you're not fit, there's more chances of things going sideways on the street, getting your butt kicked, escalating force because you don't know how to shoot or fight, or
Mhm.
getting hurt. And that's going to create more mental, emotional, and spiritual problems. If you get hurt on the job or have to use more force than might have been necessary if you were in better shape or you were better at shooting or fighting. And part of that responsibility should be on the departments, in my opinion, for sure.
Mhm.
But also we should know coming into this profession, we're not going to get all the training that we need. And you're going to have to invest on your own to get to the gym and maybe take some martial arts or go to some DT courses every once in a while and go to a tactical shooting school, 2 or 3 day shooting school, which is expensive. And especially now with ammo, but it's on us as officers too, or as a former officer. I thought all of those investments were my life insurance policy for myself, my partners, and my loved ones. So I think peer support there's not enough peer support. What peer support's out there is often very limited and it's very reactive. And we know cops have shorter lifespans and we have issues with anxiety, depression, PTSD, drinking, divorce. We already know that. Okay. So why aren't we giving people tools? How do you keep finding meaning throughout a career with all the adversity and hardship and trauma you're going to face and the physical stress from adrenaline and cortisol and shift work and lack of sleep? We know all this stuff. So what are we doing to help officers ahead of time instead of waiting until they're really messed up and then offering some help that, unless it's been destigmatized in that department, people are still struggling with being more vulnerable.
Sure. Yeah, you have to feel the same frustration I do at as I'm listening to you, I get so frustrated because it's such common sense that all of these things should be implemented. They should be automatic. It should be a given that these resources, these options, these opportunities are available and that they exist. And I'm right there with you. I think I love your approach. I love that it's both the physical and emotional health. It's that whole body mind connection. Now, tell me a little bit about being so this is your new, you're not new, but your lane is, you are the Tactical Chaplain, right? That's the name of your company or your website.
I don't have a company. Let me be very clear. I don't have a company. Somebody bought me that website. So what has happened is I did not want to do podcasts, low key. I've been doing police chaplain and peer support type stuff, primarily police, but also firemen, veterans, volunteering at a rehab place for cops and firemen, PTSD rehab. Everything I do is volunteer. And then somebody started asking me to do podcasts. I did a few, and then people wanted to get in touch with me. I didn't have any social media. I didn't have a website. And people are like, dude, you should get donations for your ministry, but nobody can find you. So somebody bought me the website Tactical Chaplain. And at first I was like, oh my God, is that cheesy or self-promoting? Okay. And everybody's like, it's easy to remember. So next time you're on a podcast, you say tacticalchaplain.com. And they're like, hey, you're a meathead. You're still in shape. You can still shoot. You can use the word tactical. Like, you're obviously an oddball chaplain. So
I think it's badass. I think it's really badass. I love
you.
it. I think it's awesome. Can I say badass to a chaplain? I don't even know. Can it?
I just
gave it away.
If you have to filter, what kind of chaplain? If you have to filter, what kind of chaplain am I for cops? Right.
Good point. Good point. Yeah, you're totally right. Yes. What am I thinking? So tell me a little bit about that aspect of what you do. Is this part of your peer support? Is it completely separate?
So people may have different opinions about chaplaincy. So stereotypically, like in Connecticut, I don't remember any chaplains. In the DC area, I do remember chaplains. And out here, I get feedback from cops and firemen from many departments, because I want to be clear, I'm not representing anyone I've worked for or volunteer for now. And because of my exposure to the rehab centers and other mixed groups, I deal with, and the nonprofit Wounded Blue, I deal with cops, veterans, and firemen across the country. So collectively, the opinion based on my experience and feedback is people have chaplains and they have no idea who in the hell they are, because they're not riding around, they're not riding along, they're not at the stations. If they show up to just events and they pray or they try to evangelize, then people are turned off and want nothing to do with them. Or are you culturally competent? So whether you're a chaplain or a mental health professional dealing with cops, you better have some freaking understanding of their world, right? There are many
Absolutely.
cops and firemen and veterans that have been vulnerable enough to get therapy, for instance, not as much reach out to clergy, but there's stories of therapists crying when they hear a typical day in the life of a cop or a firefighter or somebody that went to combat. And if you're crying, like, what good are you to me? So I
Right.
think in a lot of ways, there's that stigma. I'll give you an example. The first department I started as a chaplain, somebody introduced me during a briefing, which is what they call roll calls out here. Connecticut and DC is roll call. Out here, it's more briefing, different language. Somebody introduced me and everybody said, "Nice to meet you, sir," and ran out of the room. The next briefing, somebody said, "Matt, used to be a cop, SWAT, played college football, yada, yada. And I used to do Krav Maga and Muay Thai with them at this school." Well, everybody turned around, started dropping F-bombs. "What's up? Blah, blah, blah." Hey, they know I'm a cop. I played football. I was on a SWAT team. You're in a little bit,
Yes.
and the walls can come down. So I do have that advantage to some degree. But if you are not riding along as a chaplain, you are not riding along and spending time at the stations, they're not going to trust you. And people also fear you're going to Bible thump them, you're going to judge them, because so many people, including myself, even as a Christian with a master's in theology and another 2-year spiritual direction school, been involved in ministry my whole life. I've had people try to quote, save me and give me their 10 steps to Jesus according to their church or their denomination or their favorite TV pastor, without even getting to know me or my background. Do you even understand anything about me, my relationship with God, or my particular denomination? And if you're going to judge me, you're saying my parents and the community I grew up in, because we were this denomination, is wrong. Like you're like offending people. And then also with a lot of first responders and veterans, the simple Bible quotes, go to church, pray, read the Bible, and you should have no problems, no pain, no suffering. This wouldn't bother you, or you wouldn't get PTSD, or it's okay that your friend got killed or you saw that child killed. If you just had enough faith, if you just prayed hard enough, it wouldn't bother you. And that's not true. That's not even good theology. So there's those fears of chaplains as well.
It sounds it sounds to me a little bit like what you do is you kind of meet them where they're at.
It is a ministry of presence.
Okay.
To be a good listener, to let people share their burdens, to maybe seek resources, and to just be available. So you develop relationships and be present. And actually, many chaplaincy courses for hospitals and first responders talk about using secular crisis intervention skills, and will put you through some of the training they put peer support people through. Now, if somebody comes to me and wants to talk about faith or religion, absolutely. Now, through a lot of my life experiences, which is too much to get into about my faith journey, because there's a lot of twists and turns.
We need that for another show.
Yeah. My training in something called spiritual direction, which I've been in for over 20 years. And I sought out spiritual directors who were also mental health professionals. So I wanted to get more bang for my buck. But when you do spiritual direction, and I think I think chaplaincy should be always about what is your belief system, not mine. How can I help you based on what your belief system is? Even if you're an agnostic or an atheist, or I've walked away from Christianity, Judaism, Muslim, Hindu, because of different hypocrites or the teachings failed to meet my adult life experiences. And I need to learn about you and your history and your upbringing, your theology, your values, because spirituality ultimately in a generic sense is how are you living out the values and beliefs most important to you? And we should be reflecting on our lives to be like, am I living out what I profess I believe? Because everybody's met somebody that goes to Wednesday night Bible study, Sunday church, and preaches to the neighbors, and everybody thinks they're a jerk. They're rude to the Starbucks employee. They're rude to the neighbors. Like, how's that religion working out for you?
Right.
So, and then how do you relate to the community? How do you relate to humanity as a whole? How do you relate to a higher power if you believe in it? And how do you continue to find meaning in your life, even with pain and suffering, darkness and adversity? So that's how I would generically define spirituality. And that's going to be individual for everyone.
Right.
And I need to, if I'm dealing with an individual, I need to find out what your spirituality is. And if religion's involved, what's your religious background? And can I help you grow closer to your higher power or your God in whatever way you believe? It's not about me. And some people may disagree. And some people are trained clergy in a narrow system. And so they're used to people coming to their church or synagogue or temple, and the teachings of the doctrine and dogma are very narrow. And so maybe they may not be as schooled and being more open, because maybe they think everybody's going to burn in hell unless I convert them to my way of thinking.
This approach, I think, is got to be so disarming for anyone, and I can imagine like the sense of relief just talking to you for any of these first responders who are like, okay, good. So we're just going to talk. We're just going to talk like normal people. Great.
Yeah.
Now, so now with Tactical Chaplain, do you travel around the world? Do you stay kind of in one location? Do you do a lot of like webinars or any of those things?
So I've spoken at peer support conferences online during COVID. I'm around and about in the Los Angeles area a lot, and through Wounded Blue primarily, and also earlier through Copline. If you're familiar with Copline, it's a line where everybody's a retired cop and has 40 hours of like peer support and crisis intervention training. I have been, and just through my tactical network, my love of shooting, lifting, and martial arts, I have cop friends everywhere, and people will be like, hey, I know this dude you can talk to. So as far as traveling just for conferences, if I would love it, I can't afford it. I did not get paid that good. I took a huge pay cut from Connecticut, and my medical pension is not good. If I had the money, just like, because I was at a recent conference, like I met Sheriff Mark Lamb, I'd love to go out there for a week. I would love to ride with his department. I would love, even when officers that I deal with, I would love to go hang out with them in their departments. I'd like to do that more, but I can't pay for it. But I have been asked to talk at conferences, and to be honest, I'm not a big fan of public speaking. I didn't even want to do podcasts. I've had people ask me to submit stuff to the IACP, and for like a combined how peer support and chaplaincy should work together, and also how all the more proactive peer support, wellness, the holistic thing, not just reactive mental health. And I know some people probably think it's weird to say defensive tactics and tactical shooting, but like I said, if you can't take care of business, you're more apt to make mistakes or use more force on the street. So it's part of wellness and resiliency to me to be a well-trained officer. So maybe I'll get less shy in the future. One-on-one, I'm good. Put me in the back of a cruiser on the graveyard shift with the guys. I'm good. Put me in the weight room with the cops lifting. I'm good. Take me to the range. I've done EVOC training. So I'm good in one-on-one and small group. That's my comfort level. I'm not the type of guy that wants to be on a stage with a PowerPoint.
Right.
But, I've had people say I should try to do more of that stuff.
Because I'm incredibly introverted. I am one of those people that would never leave my house. If I didn't have to, I would never leave the house. And nobody ever believes me when I tell them that. They're like, you're so extroverted. I'm like, no, I'm actually not. I feel your pain. I definitely get it. But you actually are a fantastic speaker. So I do hope you do more of these things. And yeah, I'd like to a whole video series you gotta do. Matt Damiancic. Did I do it again right?
You did it right. Yeah.
Yes. I was practicing in my head. I'm like, I can't get it wrong the second time. Thank you so much for coming on. This was great. We're going to get everybody over to the tacticalchaplain.com, right? Yep. .com, and check out your website and check out what you're doing, and send some love your way. I thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thank you. Really appreciate the opportunity.
Coming together.